Hey everybody, welcome back to the shop. I'm Izzy, and today I have terrible news for you. We've lost two of our family members to predation. Our 2 yard ducks, Willie and Chocolate, have unfortunately met a untimely demise. So today I'm going to take you back to old school Izzy, back when we lived off the grid when I was a kid, and show you how we would build fox traps and coyote traps, live traps, really inexpensively. So in today's monetary dollar, if you were to go out and buy all this stuff pretty much brand new, you could build these traps for about 30 bucks. So I realize this project is like way out in left field compared to what I normally do, but I thought there would be a few people out there that could get some value out of it. Now today we're using some 2x8s that I bought for another project and had already planed down to 1.25 inches, which absolutely is not necessary for this project. So to be honest, we kind of went a little over the top with this, that, you know, we didn't have to, but smoke them if you got them. We had everything set up, so we went ahead and did it. Now after I cut the 2x8s down to the nominal lengths, or just a touch longer than the lengths I would actually need in the end project, I wanted a nice flat edge on them just so I could run them through my equipment. For the short pieces, I just use them up against my table saw fence, and for the long pieces I use my straight line / tapering jig that I made a video on a few months ago. I'll put a link up in the corner of the video if you're interested. So after we got everything straight lined, just a matter of ripping it down to the final thicknesses or widths that we would need. In this case, most everything is being cut down to 2 inches. The only parts that aren't 2 inches would be the stanchions that hold the trapdoor. That'll make sense later in the video, and the part that holds the little locking mechanism or trigger mechanism. So these feather boards, I have feather boards in my shop, but I don't typically use them. They're just a pain to set up. So I got these feather boards from MagSwitch at Workbench Con last month, and I gotta tell you, they're super fast. So it's like, I find myself using them more and more and more where in situations where I wouldn't likely use a feather board just because I want to get the job done. But it's quick and easy to set up. I've really enjoyed them. I'll put a link in the description box below if anyone's interested. Now the next thing I did was take my Osborne miter gauge and set it up with the miter set. I built that right into my table saw because I use it so often, and largely just to make sure that my miter gauge is perfectly square. Now when that was done, I'm just cutting everything to their final length. And the nice thing about the Osborne is once you have a measurement, you can use the stop on the other end and just flat side one, flip it over, flip the stop, and you have exactly the same cut every time when you're batching out parts. Now this was an if for me. You don't have to do this. This is the groove that the trapdoor is going to slide in. You could just use a couple of runners on each side of it, but you know, back to that whole true spirit of smoke them if you got them. We had the dado stack, and I wanted to run the dado stack in the saw stop. This is the first time I'd been able to do that, and it worked great, so I was really happy with the results. Now to put everything together, initially we're going to use some pocket holes. This is the Castle system for those of you who aren't familiar, and it is a really unique system that cuts a 6-degree pocket, so it's not a really steep 15 or 12-degree pocket like you see on other things out there in the industry. Now they have a DIY version of this. This is a pro version. The DIY version is a much more reasonably cost version of it, but the way it basically works is you have a drill bit that comes out and drills a 6-degree hole, and then a router bit that comes up and creates a pocket. Now the advantage of this is that router bit will cut thousands and thousands and thousands of pockets very cleanly before you need to change the blade out. So you're not constantly putting new step bits in to get a nice clean cut. And the 6-degree pocket makes it so just a little bit of thumb pressure, and when you screw everything together, they're nice and even. You don't have to worry about material pulling down or getting all cattywampus or clamping the whole system down to make sure that you get that nice, beautiful flush finish. So now it's just a matter of screwing it together. Now I made this trap pretty large, big enough in fact for a coyote. Where I live, we have lots of wildlife, fox, coyote, raccoons. So I wanted to make my live trap big enough to accommodate any one of those things. So in this case, it's 24 inches by 24 inches by 4 feet long. Now, after I pocket hold everything together, I want to give it a little extra strength. So I'm using some 3-inch Power Pro screws. These are exterior screws. I love these for exterior projects. And putting one in from the side. So if I do get something bigger, it's, not likely to push the trap apart. Where with those smaller screws, if something gets really aggressive, it might be able to break one of the joints. So after I had the frame made, I'm just putting on a piece of scrap plywood to the bottom. Again, this is one of those things that's optional. You can just use more, regular wood on the bottom. I had it, so I'm using it. Now, this isn't something we would typically do back in the day, but because I'm older and it's harder for me to crawl in and out of traps, I'm putting a door on the side near the back of this trap so I can access where the bait goes really easily. Now here's a little quick tip for you, especially in the shop. If you're looking for spacers, they work great. So I use Post-its all the time for quick and easy spacers for whatever. Now I'm not going to add a hinge to this door. When I start putting the chicken wire around the sides, that's going to actually end up being the hinge. This isn't going to get opened up and closed a lot, so it doesn't really matter. Now the next step was just to wrap the chicken wire. Now in my case today, I'm using a staple nailer, and I'm putting a lot of staples in. Again, just in case we do catch a larger animal, they won't be able to push through that. Another thing you could do is after you put the chicken wire to put a frame around that with some screws to add some pressure, but in this case I didn't do that. I just used a lot of staples. Now, as far as cost goes, you can pick up a brand new roll of chicken wire, 24 inches tall, 50 feet long, for about 20 bucks. And in this case, I'm using just about a third of the roll, or just shy of a third of the roll. So you can actually make 3 traps with $20 worth of this, chicken wire. And again, these are very large traps. If you were making something slightly smaller for a fox or a raccoon, you could get away with, you could get probably 4 or 5 traps out of that roll. And the cost of the 2x8s was about $5, I think $5.75 a piece right now. And so honestly, you're not talking about a whole lot of money to build your own live trap. And if you were to buy one commercially, depending on what you're looking at, a large trap like this could cost, upwards of $150 to $200. So in relative cost, it's about $30 to build this. It just made a lot more sense. And again, you don't have to get this fancy. It's just, makes for a more interesting video. We had the material here, and we were set up for the processes already, so that's why we did it. So in this case, you can see I'm putting basically one staple every little grid there. Now the last couple of things to do is to build the door. I looked at buying some thin sheet steel, which is a better option for a door. First of all, animal can't chew through it. It's lighter, it's easier to spring the trap, but it's like 50, 60 bucks for, to buy a new piece. Door, this will work fine. One thing I didn't do was put a chicken wire on this, which I should have, because you'll see later in the video when I did trap the animal in here, the raccoon in here, that he chewed almost halfway through some of those little wood pieces there. So I'm going to end up having to add some chicken wire to that. So for the trigger mechanism, I just used 3 eye hooks. and you know, a piece slides through there, and then some. I believe that is it's a plastic coated wire, like for hanging mirrors and stuff. And then just it comes through a little hook in the back, and then you pull on it and the trapdoor closes. And of course we had to test it, so my kids volunteered. Now on this one I made the trap, it's a little, you have to tug on it a little bit, so they have to work at it, which is fine for a larger animal, but in this case what ended up happening was we caught a smaller animal, and I'm hoping this is the culprit. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching today's video. I'm not 100% sure that the raccoon is what actually killed the ducks, so we're gonna leave the trap out a few more nights. And of course, I'll get the trail cam out, and in case we catch a fox or something else, I'll post that over on Instagram. Maybe you guys out there who are more experts about this kind of things could let us know in the comment section below. Like I've heard of raccoons killing yard animals like ducks and chickens, but usually from what I've seen, they leave the body behind. They don't actually carry the body off. So I'm not 100% convinced that he was the guy that got the ducks. I guess we'll see. But anyway, thank you so much for watching today. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed today's video, please give it a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe if you're not already. Lots more crazy, fun, and wild stuff coming down the pipe.